All right, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, just a side note before we get to the Gimme 5 itself, the media has been badgering Donald Trump and has been questioning the fact that he went to the opening of his D.C. hotel, the old post office, which has opened ahead of schedule and under budget. Okay, he took about an hour or two in D.C. at that opening. And I saw a particular interview with Dana Bash at CNN. Why shouldn't you be in the swing states? Why are you here? And he said, you know what? That's an insulting question. That's a rude question. Because yesterday I did 5 stops. Today, when I leave D.C., I'm going to North Carolina. I'm going back to Florida. Hillary does 1 stop a day, goes home to sleep, and you're asking me why I'm not in swing states? You can't win. Donald, you can't win with the media. Because they are in the tank, okay? Oh, he took 2 hours to be in D.C. Now he's going to lose the election. Insane. The guy's working harder than I've ever seen anybody work to get this thing done. Okay, Obamacare. We know it's blowing up. We know, I believe it's been designed to blow up so they could have single payer, just like they have in Canada and Great Britain. And people could wait for surgery, elective surgery, even needed surgery for months and die. That's what happens in Canada and other places, and that's where we're headed. But 3 years ago, I interviewed Mark Halperin. Mark Halperin of Bloomberg, Mark Halperin of MSNBC, Mark Halperin, big liberal writer, and he really said a lot of shocking things. An interview that made headlines everywhere. And my show tends to make those kinds of headlines. I have a gift. I could ask the right questions, and I make news very often. And we made big news with this one, as you'll see. So here's Mark Halperin and I talking about Obamacare 3 years ago. Watch my hair. Did the media know, do you think? Did you know that President Obama was lying through his teeth for 3 years when he said, you know, if you like it, you could keep it?
I group myself into the statement I'm about to make. I think it's clear that at the time of the passage of the Affordable Care Act and in the context of the presidential campaign, the press did nothing like an adequate job in fly-specking and scrutinizing the whole law. Not just the provisions that have already become controversial and about which the president was misleading in the context of a campaign and governance, but other aspects of the laws to come.
Other aspects of the laws to come. So he said, this is 3 years ago, that yes, the media was very lax in vetting this Obamacare bill. And I asked this very important question. Here you had a law that not one Republican voted for, and the media didn't think it necessary to find out what the heck was in it. And I mean, I just don't get that. You can't tell me it's not because Obama was a Democrat and possibly on top of it an African-American Democrat. Did that play a role?
Well, I've been outspoken for my career in saying that there's liberal bias in the media, and it's a big problem, and it remains a big problem. So I certainly think that played a role in some of the things you're talking about. I thought the coverage the president got in 2008 was the most favorable coverage of any presidential candidate I've ever covered, and I think his party played a role in that, as well as the historical nature of his election.
So there's a history of liberal bias in the media. The president has gotten the most favorable coverage he's ever seen back in 2008. And yeah, it had something to do with the fact that he's a Democrat and probably the historical nature of his election, which means the fact that he's black, like I alluded to. So this is huge stuff coming from Mark Halperin. Now, I want you to listen carefully to this. I think a lot of people said that, you know, you weren't going to be able to keep your health care, but also, you know, I think they focused on the death panels, which will be coming. Call them what you will. Rationing is part of it. And I
agree. It's huge. It's going to be a huge issue, and that's something else about which the president was not fully forthcoming and straightforward.
Right, so you believe that there will be rationing, aka death panels?
It's built into the plan. It's not like a guess or like a judgment. That's going to be part of how costs are controlled.
All right. So there are death panels. We haven't even talked about death panels in a couple of years, right? When he said that, it sent shockwaves around the country. Watch Megyn Kelly 3 years ago.
It's not like a guess or like a judgment. That's going to be part of how costs are controlled.
What? That was Mark Halperin, senior political analyst for Time magazine, in an interview yesterday that is still echoing across the country.
Echoing across the country. Yes, that's what my interview with Mark Halpern did. He admitted there are death panels. And he said, it's not my opinion. It's written into the language. Panels will decide who gets care and who doesn't. If you're too old and they think you're not going to be productive to society, you will be denied coverage. We have yet to see this because not enough millions of people are on Obamacare. But wait. The worst is still ahead of us. Now, you heard what Mark Halpern just said. You heard it from his own mouth, okay? There's no denying it. So what I want you to do, well, let's hear more from Mark about what the death panel issue really is all about.
As a society, we need to have this discussion in an honest and straightforward way because we can't afford everything, every instance that people would like to have.
And has the president been forthcoming that we need to have that argument? No.
No, he was not, and Democrats were not when the law passed. But I'll say again, there should have been more scrutiny by all the press, including the conservative press, of the specifics.
The conservative press gave a lot of scrutiny. We talked about death panels. We talked about, that everybody would lose their doctor. We talked a lot about it. That's why not one Republican voted for it. But that aside, so you heard what he said. Death panels, yeah, it's in the bill. He says it's not an opinion, it's in there. So then his liberal friends got on him. And the next day he went on Joe Scarborough 3 years ago, the day after I did that interview, and he denied.
I said something imprecisely. I was being interviewed and I was asked about rationing or death panels in the Affordable Care Act. I'll say here again what I tried to say on Twitter yesterday. I didn't use the phrase death panels, and I don't think there are death panels in the Affordable Care Act.
Wait, but that's all my tweets were saying.
I know.
They're not?
But what there is, the point I was trying to make, and which I did make, is what there is in the law is something that is intended to lower health care costs, which will produce rationing, whether you think rationing is a good idea or a bad idea.
Yeah, right. He never said the word death panels. He said it was in there. Anyway, how'd you like the hair? All right, remember to keep it here on Newsmax TV as J.D. Hayworth is coming up at the top of the hour with Newsmax Prime, and you could always stay connected at Newsmax.com and Newsmax TV. First, I leave you today with Ed Berliner, who has a recap of all the polls from the past elections and how so many pollsters got it wrong.
The pollsters have got it wrong again.
The 2014 U.S. congressional elections polls.
Where did the Democrats in the White House get this wrong?
Polls in Israel, Greece, Scotland. Wrong, and wrong. In any election year, if you watch cable news,
at least according to a new poll.
Look at the CNN poll.
The latest wave of swing state polling.
Or read any news outlet, or even take a peek at Donald Trump's Twitter feed, polls are constantly referenced as if they are gospel.
Far from it. All of these polls we've been drowning in since last year have left heads spinning, people seeking for the nearest and best excuse to explain them away, and in the end, not one definitive answer as to which candidate has the best chance of becoming our next president. To which the sane person that has been keeping track of American politics for longer than a few days might respond, hey, tell us something we didn't know.
Some of the polling was definitely biased, Republican organizations, Democratic organizations, but we also see some, neutral organizations like Gallup, for example, widely inaccurate. They were off by 2 or 3 points.
Polls can cause a voter or a candidate to make a decision that can influence an election. For instance, if a voter or a candidate thinks a race is over, they'll give up, and the poll becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So try to ignore the polls if you can. Certainly don't make decisions based on them because, as I showed you, they can be wrong.
And therefore, our lesson for today, ladies and gentlemen.
As we've talked about, the thing to focus on is not the undecided voters, it's the enthusiasm of supporters.
Florida is the largest of the states that are, I think, up for grabs, 29 electoral votes there. If he doesn't get that, there just aren't enough states or enough electoral votes left for him to close that gap.
Polls show Hillary Clinton with a narrow lead there. Donald Trump campaigning there last night. He told voters in Florida he doesn't trust these numbers.
Wash, rinse, and repeat those words. Polls are never the final word because they are conducted by humans and merely opinions, not absolutes. Ed Berliner, Newsmax TV.